Okay. Okay, I think I'm live. I'm just testing streaming ability because a friend wants something live streamed, and I have a camera that can zoom, which is very important for this sort of thing. So I don't know how long that actually works. So I thought I'd just go online and see if anybody wants to talk with me. So I have a reason to actually keep this running for a bit because I don't know if the camera is going to overheat or something like that. Or run out of battery or whatnot. And I don't know if anybody is watching it all. If you are, say hi. Yeah, somebody says Happy Thanksgiving. Oh, we had our Thanksgiving ages ago. Good morning. Yeah, it's not. I guess it's still kind of morning-ish. We're in New Brunswick, so it's actually getting close to noon. And I'm just gonna try to follow myself on the other stream on my other YouTube channel. Let's see, live, where's that? Actually, I guess it should be under subscriptions. So if everybody's got a question, feel free to ask. It gives me something to talk about. Hello from Sweden, hello from Estonia, hello Matthias, yeah. Toronto, good channel, oh, yeah. Long time fan from New York. Yes, of course, there's all the regulars, and of course some people will think, oh, I missed it, but I don't, this is not going to be all that exciting. And I'm just, whoa. So I'm actually just following that on the main channels just to see the latency. So, right, light is unfavorable for that. So to get a sense of latency, let's aim this at the computer because there's a bit of latency on these things. So, and I'll make this one full screen. There. Oh, now I got to zoom out a bit. Live streams do have a bit of latency, so I will clap. There, that's the amount of latency that is actually in the live stream. So that's just something I wanted to explore, and you get to see it too. I turned off the audio because otherwise it just it becomes one hell of a mess with everything that's going on. Can you make a device, make a vintage rotary phone ring on demand? That is actually quite difficult. It takes 20 hertz, 120 volt AC. Quite difficult to generate. My brother actually built his own homemade PBX, and he actually solved this problem using a big AC transformer. I think he's got it on his website. If you look for Marcus Wandel homemade PBX, I think that might be findable. Let me just search for that myself. That voltage waveform is rather difficult. Yeah, wandel.ca/homepage/pbx.html. I've discovered that various VoIP type boxes, let's just go over the internet, don't generate the proper ring voltage to make a rotary phone ring. The box I've got from Bell does ring that, but the newer ones, like the VoIP box we've got, doesn't ring it, unfortunately. So it's quite difficult because this is legacy. Basically, it used to, this goes back to when phones had the little cranky thingy that you had to crank. That basically generated 120 volts, I think about 120 volts, 20 hertz to the other end to make that ring. And it had to be that frequency because that was the resonant frequency of the little thinger that hit the bell. Quite the legacy there, and they've stuck with that, which is a bit difficult because if you're working on a phone line and somebody rings you, you can get pretty zapped. Anyways, let's see. Sorry, I of course, people are asking questions, and please make a video about making Raspberry Pi virtual print server. I have no idea about that. Ask somebody who's more into that sort of thing. Great to see you live. Blah, blah, blah. Please make a video about making. Don't repeat the questions, please. Yeah, that, Mr. Juan, whatever, I might have to block you because you keep asking the same thing. I'm just looking for questions. How many Raspberry Pis do you have, and what are you doing with them all? A lot of them are actually running cameras. So for instance, this one up here, can you see that one? That has got my image comp program running. It's got a super wide lens on it. And quite often afterwards, if I've done something, oh, I should have kept a photo of that. I wish I had that. So let me pop that one up on my computer here. Okay, so I just popped that up on the computer. Damn it, I'm gonna have to close the blinds because this glare is terrible. Okay, so unfortunately, come on, focus. There. Let me try to move that. So that allows me to view what's going on recently. And so this indicates activity here. And if I just mouse over here, you can see me right now in front of the computer, and I can even go real-time display, which isn't actually all that real-time. It updates once a second. So you can see me moving. And so quite often, if I've done something afterwards, like, oh, I wish I'd taken a photo of that. Or for instance, when I got hacked, that was very useful because I could then afterwards reconstruct the timeline of what happened, like when I pulled the internet cable out of the computer, because fortunately that computer doesn't have Wi-Fi. So not terribly real time. So you see me waving the hand. And there, that's like a couple of seconds behind. And I've got a bunch of these outside monitoring various parts of the house. And the cool thing is, unlike something that takes video, this is actually quite high resolution. You're not going to be able to appreciate that over the webcam because it's basically the still resolution of the camera, which is much better than the video resolution on the Pis. And I can also just scrub through that. So I just move my mouse along and you can see. So I actually use that quite a lot. If I've misplaced something, it's like, damn it, where the hell did that go? So I'll go back and scrub on the camera to see when I last had it in my hand. And then look forward to see, it's like, okay, what happened to it? Where did it go? Now, sometimes it'll be off frame, but I was like, oh, what was I doing at this point? Like I lost my calipers at some point. One's like, well, these are plastic ones. One of these, where's my metal one? I've got one at my desk all the time. It's like, where is it? It was like, oh, what was I doing here? Oh yeah, I went to my scrap metal pile to find something. It's like, so I went to the scrap metal pile and sure enough, I left it there. So very useful. Let's see, what other questions have we got? Part of my interest here in doing this is actually I want to see if the camera overheats and stuff like that and how long does the battery last. So it's got a fresh battery in there right now. And so it may just at some point end spontaneously if the battery dies, at which point I may try to restart the stream because this whole thing is my sister-in-law wants her wedding streamed and it's not unlikely that something will die. And so the question is, can I resume? So if the stream dies, I will probably try to resume it unless it goes on for like an hour, at which point I'll say it's like, oh, the battery's good enough. Okay, let me read questions again. Are you an active investor? Not really. I let the financial advisor handle that. I've done some active things, some of which worked out, some of them did not. My best active investment myself was I shorted SCO, which is a very calculated sort of thing because I worked out, it's like, how much would they be worth potentially if they win the lawsuit? And can I afford that risk? Because of course your downside is unlimited. And I really don't have the stomach for that, but I was very lucky in that the stock dropped straight away. And within a few weeks, it was like less than half of its value, at which point I got out. So that worked out really well, but I've also, like some private investments, I bought Nortel shares after they were way down, at which point I had to sign them high risk investor. It's like, okay, I bought it like at a higher price and wrote it down. That was not high risk, but as a penny stock, it was a high risk. So that one worked out positive, but didn't make up my losses earlier. So the whole thing is like, I just don't want to dedicate my life to that sort of thing. And it's very hard to outperform the index. Oh, a Mogla camp. Yeah. So there's updates on that. So my mother passed away this summer. My sisters want to keep it at least. So we'll try keeping it for another year. But that will be interesting to see how that works out because there's just so much work involved in that. And actually one thing I've been doing is, hang on, my mom kept a logbook, which is very interesting. And just all the stuff that needed to be done on that. I'm just trying to pop it up, but that's going to take a bit of clicking around. Come on. I need that hard drive to start on the server. So let me turn that. Let's turn that at the screen. I am not set up for any of this fancy, using OBS. I'm just going straight to YouTube because OBS is so hard to learn. And for wedding, that won't be necessary. So this is a handwritten logbook by my mom in German, half German, half English kind of thing. And I scanned all that into the computer and then had actually Google. I used Google Keep. I put the pages in Google Keep, and that did the handwriting recognition, which, considering the handwriting, is actually incredible that it works at all, but very error prone. And there's 365 pages of this, and over the past few months, I've gotten it into the computer and corrected all kinds of typos. And this is kind of interesting because it allows me to search for things. And I wrote some scripts to like analyze, do histograms of how certain terms vary over the year and stuff like that. And as I'm going through it, also there's a lot of stuff that's just abbreviated because handwriting is kind of annoying. So I've been de-abbreviating all that, which makes it more searchable. So it's very interesting, but so much work to keep it up. And so much trouble with like lawn tractor needed fixing again and again and again and again, which is not surprising. Like we were there to clear the place, the other place that we call the farm where I stayed in the winter. No, that was actually in the summer. And just like my second last day there, I decided to mow there, and I'm looking, it's like, wait, this is wrong. And there's a thing missing. The deck is not attached. The deck is not being held properly. That's why it's crooked. Same problem with the other place. Oh, there's a fuel line leak, and there's this and there's that. So I fixed as much as I could, made a new part to hold the deck back up. It's like completely neglected. Of course, it needs fixing all the time. If you don't, the problem is, it's like anything technical, lawn tractors are not as sophisticated as cars, so they things go wrong with them more. And my mom was not somebody who did that sort of stuff, and so it needed fixing all the time, and the water issues and this and that and the other type of thing. But yeah, so the cat may become for sale within a year, maybe not. I don't know. I hate to part with it, but on the other hand, I don't live there, so it would be logical to sell it. So I don't know what's going to happen with the camp. But yeah, watch the space. If we do put it on the market, I will most certainly announce it on the website. I've been approached by various people. The bulk of our flakes. Problem with a place like that is you cannot borrow money against it very well because it's not a commodity property. Any sort of business, even that is perfectly running, banks are very hesitant to lend money against it. So unless you've got the cash to buy it, it probably won't work for you. And yeah, it's interesting. Like when we sold Martin Street, even selling that was a challenge because, again, banks are hesitant to lend against properties like that. Anything that is not a house in town or just a residence, those sort of things are commodities. They can be flipped easily. So the bank says, okay, we can lend, like 75% against that. And if it goes south, we'll repossess it and we'll flip it and we're out. But if it's any sort of unusual property, the bank is like, we don't know how well we can flip that if things go south, so therefore we're not going to lend very much money against it. So we have lots of margins so we can sell it quickly for a song and not be in the red on it. So rural properties, a very interesting conundrum kind of thing. When sawing a triple blind on the bandsaw, how do you stop the baseline from migrating uphill and confusing the marking gauge, especially after the pins have already... Oh, dovetails. I don't understand that question. I'm sorry. You had 3-star YouTube video with choppy framing. Oh, yeah, that was a problem on my camera. This very camera on here. I don't have a mirror to... I don't have a mirror. The camera that I'm streaming with... Oh, I do have a head mirror. Now you get to see the camera. This camera. There. My Sony ZV-1, which has a zoom and, well, as a webcam is actually quite good. I just realized only recently that it can do that. At some point, I set it to, by accident, to manual shutter speed, and the shutter speed was set to, I think it was like 1/30th of a second, which is basically the frame rate. And that meant that the camera with overhead did not have time to grab a picture every frame, so I grabbed a picture every other frame. So even though it said it was framing 30 frames per second, it reused every frame twice. So the output was in fact 30 frames per second, but every frame repeated twice. And something seemed a bit choppy, but just the way I edited, I wasn't really watching the video. I just kind of scrubbed through it and whatnot. And I watch it very small on my crappy old Sony Vegas. I always resize everything to half because that didn't. It's a 12-year-old piece of software. So I didn't realize, yes, this is indeed a problem, and I started looking into it, and then I finally got that fixed. But I had actually like 3 videos in the can by the time I published the first one of those. So the third one that was choppy, I actually refilmed a few scenes where the choppiness was most obvious and that are easy to refilm. And this was using Sony Vegas, which I have stopped using now because I upgraded PC recently to this guy here, the Geekom A9, which is actually a quite powerful PC. And I wanted to reactivate on that my old copy of Sony Vegas again, and the activation server is no longer online, which means I could no longer activate it because I've been activating that just in case on every computer I've got, just in case. And so I was like, well, maybe it's time to bite the bullet and try something else. And I had been playing around with, I had considered buying the latest Sony Vegas. Problem is it only has, the color scheme on that is light gray, is dark gray on darker gray. So everything is very hard to read and you cannot change it. And that was probably inspired by DaVinci, which also only has dark gray on darker gray. Again, really hard to read. And I was like, well, there's got to be something open source that's decent enough for my purposes by now. And so I Googled and Kdenlive. Actually, I asked the guy, but anyways. So Kdenlive, and I downloaded that, and I could change the color scheme to something not stupid. That was basically, that cinched the deal for me to use that one, and it's free. I sent him a donation because it's a pretty good one. Let me just pop that up. So that, it's in some ways I miss some of the stuff was much faster on Sony Vegas, but I had to work around so many problems because it was such an old piece of software. And it tended to crash, and Kdenlive so far has not crashed on me. And so you can see here a non-sucky color scheme for my editing, in that I can have nice contrast. Because, and to me, like, I think the Sony Vegas, sorry, the Adobe Premiere and all that is like, you're going to make a cinematic movie, and you are, the audience is going to have an optimal view experience, and so you need to have an optimal editing experience. So you're going to be sitting in the dark editing the damn thing, and I'm like, people watch the thing on their smartphones. I do not want optimal editing. I don't want to edit something that requires a cinema to watch. And so having white around it is actually very important to me because it makes it very clear that I'm too far from white, so that I can adjust the levels. If I don't get near white, then I adjust the brightness on it to get close to white, so that if you're watching it, casually watching, which is what most people do, it will be decent on your computer or your smartphone or your tablet or whatever. And for those of you watching it in a home theater, well, too bad. You know what? It's not any worse for the experience. Okay. Hello. How are you? I'm kind of bummed out that Scott Adams' podcast isn't on right now, but it was a pleasant surprise. Yeah. Is he still alive? I imagine it would probably be announced on Hacker News that he died. He's got was it prostate cancer or something? So he announced that he probably would not be alive much longer earlier this year, but I think he's lasted longer than he thought he would. So that's rather unfortunate. I used to follow him, used to watch his podcasts, but the information density is too low. So I stopped watching. Although one thing I guess I could do is to summarize them with Google Gemini. So one thing I've discovered recently is you can use Google Gemini to summarize YouTube videos. And all this started with somebody posted on Hacker News, YouTube DL, as in too long didn't, no, not DL, YouTube DW or something, YouTube TLDW, something just somebody hacked together, and eventually it stopped working, probably because it got too popular. So it just downloads the transcript and summarizes it for you. It's like, wow, that is so awesome, because so many times, like, somebody will post some video about some topic that's interesting, but of course, to not monetize it, well, they make a half-hour video out of it. It's like, you know what? This is like a couple of paragraphs worth of information. I don't have time to watch this freaking long video, but I'm really interested in what you're talking about. So now I just take the URL for the video and go into Google Gemini and say summarize in the URL, which doesn't always work, but if I'm on my main account, it does work. So it's possible that it depends on other things that you're subscribed to, but I use that a lot now for some of these. They talk about current events and stuff like that, and always just talk about it way too wordily. I've even used it on the Making It podcast, which I follow because it's on YouTube. So sometimes if I just, is there anything interesting in this one enough? Just summarize it for me. Gemini is like, oh yeah, maybe I'll watch this part here. Any wasps bother you these days? Nope. Scott Adams is a very unpleasant person, I read. Well, he's political. He is definitely on the conservative side, so obviously he's going to be very unpleasant if you don't agree with his philosophy. He was very pro-Donald Trump all along, so obviously that's very polarizing. I don't agree with everything he says, but it's interesting, his way of thinking. But again, the main reason I don't follow him anymore is it's just I don't have the time. There's not enough information in the length that he talks. 3 ads have interrupted this live stream. Yeah, I turned those ads on, and I turned them to low frequency. I wonder if this happened for the wedding. No, because I was like, well, let's see how that works. So I turned on the ads and I set the frequency to low. So sorry, guys. Yeah, ads are annoying. I just thought, I was like, well, let's just turn them on, but set the frequency to low to not make it not quite so bad. So this is low frequency. Just imagine if I set the frequency to high. And shitification. I keep searching for an old videos of yours where you build a storage rack about barn door in the big workshop you had. Above the bit bar. Yeah. I don't think it was titled that. So I think and it wasn't so much, it was just a bunch of kinds of things to store long fluorescent tubes up there, just so to get them out of the way, because you don't want to bump into them, because then you got mercury vapor all over the place. Ramming baboons make more sense. That's a reference to Scott Adams, I assume. Yeah, he's polarizing. There are plenty of conservatives disagree with who I find unpleasant just on the basis. Yeah, it's just, things are so polarized, and I wonder how much the Russians are helping this by funding the, like there's the whole Tenet Media, I think it was, that they're helping, not so much to get their agenda in there directly, but just to help the polarization, because it's in their best interest. Oh yeah, Donald Trump, he's being such an idiot right now. The whole, oh man, there's Professor Gertis that I follow about the whole Ukraine thing. The whole thing is just a shit show right now. This is the latest peace proposal, which came straight from the Russians. So I imagine mainstream media is probably going to pick that up and it's going to turn into a scandal. But there's always a delay, if you follow, if you kind of follow these sort of people that are on the leading edge, sometimes you get stuff that turns out to be incorrect. But if it's substantial enough, the mainstream media does end up picking up. Scott is a great guy and has integrity about Scott Adams. Yeah, it's like different opinions. I don't agree with stuff he said, but I think he justifies what he says well. Are you going to recreate playlists of your bills? I did recreate some of them because they're linked from my website, but the playlists don't get a lot of plays, so it's not. I don't know. Who are currently your favorite YouTubers? Any more collaborations coming in the future? Oh gosh. I've got a huge list of subs, but let me just see who's posted recently. Like if Marius Hornberger posts, I'll watch that. Doesn't post very often. Oh look, this one's my favorite. This one's one of my favorites. This guy right here, huh? Right, me streaming right now. Just kidding. I have the 2 channels and they're subscribed to each other just to make sure I can check things more easily. So there is, gosh, I don't remember his name. He doesn't have, terrible. This guy, posting about the homestead he's building. He used to make more YouTube videos, but he's building a shop after the move. Oh yeah, Jeff Gerling, quite like. Veritasium, again, Professor Curtis. In terms of super channels, Beyond the Press. Stand Up Maths, of course. John Campbell, F-Stoppers. Ben Heck, Johnny Harris. It's also a bit polarizing, I suppose. Still watch Jamie's stuff at this point is called, I can't pronounce his last name. So I can't really say that one of them is, there's some that I like more than others, but Veritasium has fallen to venture capital. True. Are familiar with Damien Mulaney on YouTube at all? No, haven't heard of him. Angela, big fan of Angela Collier. No idea. How did I get so proficient with the C language? I used to work like when I was working at RIM, which later became BlackBerry. Like that was programming in C, and even before starting there, I knew how to program in C. It was just the language to learn. Lately, mostly I do stuff in Python, just because there's so many libraries available, and it's fast enough. I've actually been doing the last little bit, quite a bit of Python programming just for the CNC. There's a project I'm working on, which we'll probably try to productize, which unfortunately means I can't publish it until that is ready, because it makes more sense to have it all at once. And also, the later I publish it, in terms of if I actually want to try to get a provisional patent for it, then you're better off publishing later, because that increases the window that you have before you apply for it. Watching in Northwest Union seems to do much joinery stuff these days. This is true. Yeah, I just haven't had a need for furniture. So, the YouTube doesn't pay well enough for the stuff I do to just make stuff just for the heck of the YouTube video. So it's always something that I want anyways. YouTube messed it up. New try in a moment. What? I think I'm still... Yeah, no, this is still streaming on my computer. And I've got YouTube Premium on here, so I don't get interrupted with ads on that one. But maybe I should try that with the incognito window. Python plus SciPy is magical. I don't know. I'm using AI a lot to do the programming, because to some extent, I suck at programming. Because when I write a routine, it's like I get to I'm like 20 lines in and I don't remember what I call my variables. So I think I'm pretty good at what do I want it to do, designing the algorithm and all that. So quite often I'll do the initial prototype all with AI, and revising the program with AI only works for a little bit. But then if it's modular enough, then sometimes I'm just like, okay, AI, write a function that takes these vectors that are in triplets, or it takes a series of points that are stored in tuples, or actually triplets. And just recently, it's like, and eliminate the points that are like part of a straight line. And then look at what it comes up with. And then it's like, okay, now, use this library. I'll write the routine and I'll just paste it into my code. It's great that way. Even one time it's like, refactor this routine to work this way. And it did it. It was like, oh, cool. But I don't know, this whole vibe coding, I don't know about that, because you have to maintain control. You have to know the code. So I like to keep AI a little bit at arm's length, where I specifically request things from AI as opposed to AI constantly trying to fiddle with what I'm doing. But I find it extremely useful. It seems like one of those too good to be true traps that everyone is falling into. Yes. My question is, I'm going to get really rusty at coding manually. Mind you, I still do a lot of debugging manually, and sometimes AI comes with what looks like a complete solution, and it doesn't work. But other than that, it's like, that looks, and then just to go through on what I did and find the bug. And I've actually at some point, it's like, okay, now that I found the bug, okay, AI, there's a bug on this line here, fix it. It does a good job fixing it. Any ongoing Panther involvement? Yeah, I should make more videos about that. It's just, the Panther is a joinery machine, which is relevant if you're building furniture, and that requires me building furniture. And also, I should use these guys some more, which, by the way, are for sale again.
I pulled one of these out. I was just using one of these to check the precision of some dowels to make sure, and like I've been making some dowels and super precise, so this thing fits on there, and it gets stuck on one particular point, which is where I have to flip the stock around, and so I have a slight inconsistency. So these are great. I also mean to use these, which are also for joinery. So then the question is, do I use mortise and tenon with the pant router, or do I do I use these things? Because both of these I should give exposure to. These things, I love these things for just making your own sort of jigs. And I need to make a video about how to just make like a jig that's just like got 4 or 5 of these in line precisely. I kind of show the overall procedure in the video where I announce these things. But just to make a dedicated video about how to make these jigs would also be useful for buyers of these jigs, and of course would help with the sales a little bit too. What do you think the future of engineering will look like in the presence of AI? Well, it is very useful, but it's probably going to lead to various mistakes being made. But this has been the case for quite some time. I read at some point about some stadium that collapsed, and they had used computers to help with the design. But what they had failed to take into account is the buckling force of the members. And so some members were too long and they buckled because the software didn't take that into account. They relied on the software. So that, AI is going to lead to other things where AI has an oversight, and you rely on AI to not have an oversight, and then whoops. But also it really enhances, like me writing Python scripts to do various things, like the program I was using to do the temperature graphs in the video about this particular oscilloscope, where I ended up drilling all of these. Can't do this in the mirror. I drilled up all these holes in it to help with the cooling, and the painted the heatsink and made the pads thinner. That program, like I used to do everything with ASCII graphics, but because AI makes that sort of thing easier, I used a program that I used for the TP-Link switches. I still got my computers plugged into 2 of these here. And I just modified it to take temperature readings instead, and then made a bunch of other enhancements to it and all that. So AI is just super for that, because like to throw up a GUI with tkinter, I don't know how to use tkinter. So it's like, put up this GUI, and then I figure out the code, and it's like, oh, this is great. It doesn't always do exactly what you want, but in terms of researching and how to do this and that, it's like, just write me a piece of code that uses this API to do this thing, and done. It's super good at that. I wonder how long have I been streaming now. Let me just check here. If I go back in my video, 30 minutes. So that's pretty good. So I think if the camera was going to overheat, it probably would do that by now. I went out of my way to flip the display out. Then mirror image there. Because that way, at least I've got the back surface behind it more exposed, so it traps heat a little bit less. So hopefully it won't overheat. The battery still shows full. Well, that's encouraging. So it might last the length of the wedding. And the cool thing is, especially because you can't use a webcam, like, where is it? These regular webcams, I've got a fairly good webcam. Like this one, but they're all wide angle, so they suck. And if you're trying to, so with this, I can zoom in, and let's see. How does that work now? So that, it's a mirror image on the screen, so I always keep getting it wrong. So that works pretty good. The zoom and the audio on this camera is actually quite good. One of the things I like about this camera, I bought this camera ages ago for YouTube videoing, and it does decent video quality, but the audio sucks on it, so I couldn't use it. And the one I used before that, my Canon something or other, it's not in this room, had okay audio. This one has got excellent audio, but probably I think the MEMS microphones they use have gotten really good, and they're amazing microphones. I was actually, speaking of MEMS microphones, I was doing a bit of work for a guy who's got a business in town that basically uses, called the shot marker, and it uses the shock waves from a bullet that travels to figure out exactly where it hit the target. It's basically an e-target, and he times the shock waves with those things to figure, and then calculates where the bullet presumably hit the target, using 8 microphones actually to calculate all the shot parameters. And yeah, at some point I suggested this, like, what if you use just a regular dynamic microphone, because the microphones can saturate. So we played around with that, and the frequency response for those was way poorer, the responsiveness. And so it turns out these MEMS microphones are, they say they can go, I don't know, it's 20 kilohertz, but that's not true. They actually go way higher than that. And he was taking advantage of that. So when he tried a dynamic microphone, it just didn't have the frequency response to do the accurate calculations. So yeah, MEMS microphones are cool. Are you familiar with Scott Rumschlag? Yes, he hasn't posted anything in a long time. Yeah, his expanding table, he's done some interesting stuff. I'm subscribed to him. I haven't seen any video of him recently. He just wasn't getting enough traction on his YouTube channel to, I think, to make it worthwhile continuing. You see that sometimes. And part of that is, his stuff is so, he couldn't make it, he didn't have the charisma to really attract the audience just for the heck of it. And it's complicated enough that only a small subset of the people actually can appreciate what he's actually doing, so he just never got the views. What to make a drawer for my work to sell from as well. You know what? Yeah, you want to do it fancy like that. I've made many drawers just by nailing them together, and you know what? None of them is broken. I like doing box joints in the videos, but have I got a drawer here? No, these are all box joint drawers. But I have got plenty of nailed drawers, and they're fine. So you can nail it. Actually, let me get a drawer, talk about it. Okay, I'm back. So I have about 50 of these drawers like this. I made these back in the 1980s for storing junk in, because, buying plastic ones was just out of budget. But my dad had a big shop, so therefore, of course, I didn't pay for the wood. And so these have got a rabbet joint here and here. Nowadays, actually, a rabbet like that, I like to make that really shallow, but just the width of a saw blade, which just helps to align when nailing it together. So this is just nailed together. And then this is a front panel that is also the face on here. So it's just nailed into a rabbet like that. And never nailed from the front, and not just because it looks ugly, but when you slam the drawer shut, when you hit against here like that, that would eventually pull the nail out like that. So if you're coming in from the side, the impact of slamming the drawer shut is not going to pull the nails apart. So that's important. And this one's got the bottom rabbeted in, and just a little knob. In retrospect, I should have placed these knobs maybe a bit higher, because I pull the drawer out by the knob quite often. So if the knob is higher, you can push against the bottom here. Although if the knob is lower, you have more room for a label. So this used to have a label on it. I've reorganized this a bit, so I actually have one empty one right now, so I could show this one to you. So yeah, you can make simple drawers like that, and they're fine. And this one, I used to do this more to just have a slide in on the side where it slides in. Problem is that means the sides needs to be quite thick. So an advantage of box joint drawers is the joiner is much stronger, so you can make these sides much thinner. But that means you don't want to have a rabbet in the side, which means you're just guiding it by the top and bottom. But that is fine too, because you can just put the slide in between the drawers. And then what I always do is, so the slide would be right here, and then the front is that much higher, so it covers up the slide, and then I can heat the drawer. So imagine the slide is like half an inch or a centimeter thick. I can heat the drawer 1 centimeter higher than the walls of the drawer, which is also very handy, because the slides only take up space here. The front is that much taller to cover that up. So basically, I get the space that's used for the slides back, in that I can just heap the drawer where the slides are supposed to be. How are we doing now? I don't mind going on talking like this, and I'm just kind of like, okay, this is an endurance test also for how long this is going to work. I have no idea how many people. Oh, 371 watching, yeah. Okay, let's see, another question. Any thoughts on using 3D printers in your projects? Yeah, well, playing around with the CNC or 3D printing would be so much easier, but then your thing is made out of plastic. And the stuff I'm playing around with right now, like plastic, will not do because the friction gets too hot and it's not hard enough. And yeah, I just... there's very few times when I really could use a 3D printer, and so it's just not worth getting one for me. Salvage. Yeah, salvage wallboard, door skin, underlayment, etc. Very good drawer bottoms. Exactly, yeah, because they don't need to be very thick because they're held on all sides. One of the things actually that I do take into account when I make drawers is another sort of thing is like I make if the front is a little bit higher because the slides are on the side. So now the drawer above that, if it's a big one, the bottom may sag a little bit. But because the front of the drawer is higher, the drawer above that can sag into that space without hitting anything because the back is also a bit lower. So imagine, I've got this extra 1 centimeter for where the slides are. Now if the drawer above the bottom were to sag 1 full centimeter, it wouldn't rub against the drawer below that. So that's another thing to take into account when making drawers is, because I use thin bottoms, is if the bottom sags, make sure it doesn't hit the next drawer. And by having the front of the drawer a little bit taller than the rest of the drawer, if the top one sags, it's not going to hit the drawer below that. It's only going to hit the stuff that's in the drawer. But your sag is not going to be that extreme, so you might lose a couple of millimeters that you can stack less stuff into the drawer, but it's not going to cause a problem. 3D printer plus your drill guide, bushing equals profit. No, because 3D prints aren't strong enough. Because when you drill with these suckers, the hole gets full of sawdust. That causes a lot of torque, a lot of friction. So this guide gets hot, and there's a lot of torque applied to it. And if that thing is stuck in plastic, it will come out. So no, 3D printing is not suitable for that. Did you drill before nails? No. That drawer's made out of softwood. If it was hardwood, that's a different story. Would you like woodworking or tech stuff? Lately, I'm more into the tech stuff. The thing is, when I do videos about tech stuff, I always learn something myself. Whereas with the woodworking, I don't. So the video about like this scope here was quite interesting to make. So I only got the scope out of this. Like there's no sponsorship fee or anything like that. And it's not perfect, but it's definitely the highest performing scope I've got, annoyingly loud. And I need to explore on that one some more. So I've actually got some material already bought for that. Because I've found if I send a 50 ohm signal in there, even if I set this thing to terminate at 50 ohms, there's a bounce. And I don't know if it's because I got shitty cables or what else. So I bought some better coax cable and a longer piece. So that'll be something to experiment with in the future, where I send through this, and just by having a longer signal, I can separate. Hopefully I won't have my cables and the scopes bounce confounding each other. So to test some of that. So I do find these sort of things terribly interesting, but unfortunately it requires a certain amount of intelligence in the audience to appreciate, which makes for a smaller audience. Which, you got to respect people like Veritasium or some of the other science channels that do well, in that they're able to present these things in a way that laymen can appreciate it. Of course, you can go too far, like Mike Rober, who just totally dumbs things down, and I find him annoying at this point. I still kind of scan through his videos to see what he's doing, but it's all about promoting his stuff. It's all about promoting, not so much about this is interesting. Would you consider creating a basic course on how to program a Raspberry Pi? No, because there's no such thing as a basic course, and I'm sure that sort of thing exists already, and then the audience will be very small, and you know what? There's stuff out there already. Go to AI, ask AI how to do this or that on a Raspberry Pi. It's really good at this sort of thing because there's a lot of material out there they can train on. So, it's like, say, for instance, I want my program to run every 10 minutes. How to do this? It'll probably tell you how to set up a cron job on it to do this sort of thing. Or it's like, I want a script that does blah, 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 blah in Python, and it'll write it for you if it's a basic sort of thing, and then you can learn from there. So it's an amazing learning thing, AI, in that you can learn by example, which is the best way to learn, as opposed to trying to like study this or that. It's like, no, I just want this solved. Okay, solve this. And it's like, okay, well, it's not quite what I want. Let's look at this code and let's try to modify it what I want, because quite often AI isn't very good at the subtleties. So AI is an excellent learning tool. And so just use AI and your Pi and ask AI to help you. My two best videos are homemade machines, bandsaw, yeah, rotor table, etc. Any new build coming? So here's the thing. The tools that people have in the shop I've already built, like a bandsaw. So I could invent some other sort of tool. So I invented the panther rotor, but beyond that, you get into more and more specific sort of things, which means fewer people have a need for such a thing. And so it's a huge amount of work, and is it at all justifiable, the effort? So actually, I'm just looking at my camera right now, and let me show you. Oh, this is way overblowing the brightness. Oh, yeah. Can you see that? So I'm watching the battery, and it still says battery full. Oh, there's a plug right next to it, which you can't. If I put it on, oh yeah. So this is the convex side of the thing. So this is the magnified. This is a shaving mirror. So it says it's plugged into the laptop computer. So that's why the battery's lasting, because it's getting juice from the laptop computer. I was like, surely the battery would be dead by now, so I don't need to worry about that. So I don't need to worry about streaming that long for testing that. And I've been online for, it must be at least 40 minutes now. Yeah, 43 minutes. And so the camera it's long enough for it to reach thermal equilibrium, which is to say it's not going to overheat. Which is to say I don't really need to keep on that much longer. So yeah, let's see. I'm going to look at a few more questions, but then I'm going to wrap it up because this is a pretty long stream already. I've always appreciated that you leave some mistakes in your videos. Yeah, I used to leave fewer video mistakes in there. I used to take the philosophy you kind of have to build it twice so that you don't have so many mistakes because you can't cut those out. And now I'm like, eventually I realized it's like, well, if more of it's like, I just can't be bothered. I'll just tell you I screwed up. And then I realized that's the stuff that people like the best. So now when I screw up spectacularly and I have it on camera, that's going in. Although there's quite a few times like, rats, I cut this backwards, and I'll just have to jiggle that, and that may not be all that interesting. So, where do you learn to be systematic? Hey, I'm German. That's not something that comes from education or anything. Some people are and some are not. Veritasium videos are becoming increasingly narrow within science, which I'm not a fan of. I like it, I don't mind the narrowness. I don't mind when he does a deep dive. I understand what he's talking about. Will you ever make another organ musical instrument like a guitar? No, because the curse of musical instruments, those videos do rather poorly. Because I shouldn't say everybody, but a large portion of the population has got a bit of latent trauma about musical instruments, because unless you are a musician, which most of us aren't, I am not, it's like, I should have learned this, or I should have kept with it and all that, and you feel kind of guilty about it, and you don't want some guy reminding you of that so that you don't watch it. So you'd end up tuning out and watch something else instead. And that's fine. You as an individual are free to do that, but as a video creator, that is death when the majority of people does that. So it's the curse of musical instruments. If I was a channel that was about music so that I have audience that doesn't have this latent trauma, that would be different, but I'm not. Most of my audience is not musicians. And personally, personally to me, it's kind of addressing this a little bit. So when I built the ukulele, it's like, I can do some musical type of stuff, but it doesn't help my audience. They don't get this sort of feeling of redemption by watching the video. Still no Patreon plan? I am on Patreon. Hey, go and donate, huh? I do have a Patreon account. I don't know. What an incredible reason to not be popular. I never thought of that. I don't know what you're talking about. Did your dad get you interested in woodworking, or were you just interested in it? There's an anecdote. At some point, I was asking my dad in the shop, how would you do this? And my dad kind of snapped at me. He's like, why do you even ask? You're going to do it differently anyways, which was true. I said, well, just for reference. It's just being able to watch him do stuff and having access to wood and playing around with it was very useful just by example, but there was no teaching me specific things. What are you going to buy for Black Friday? Nothing. What did you study? Programming. You know, when I went to university, there was some class. I took a couple of programming classes. My program wasn't about programming, and he's like, "And you're going to program this in C. You're expected to already know this. If you don't, here's a book." That's basically, it's like, you need to learn this programming language. If you don't know it, learn it. That is your problem. You're going to program this in C. I like that attitude. Love Veritasium. Mark Rober's great for kids, etc. But I've been sad with Smarter every day lately, slowly squeezing in apologetics into the science he explores. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I meant music related being unpopular. LOL. Yes. Tool idea. Manual 3D router like a manual CNC. Well, you don't want, you know what? You can just hold the rotor in your hand and that's full 3D control. So you don't want full control. And you know what? The Panther rotor or the my slot mortising machine actually do a lot of that already. And then my homemade milling machine like contraption, which, will also do that a lot. So, but that's not something I encourage you to build because it requires so many specific parts. And you're going to be on hundreds of dollars on those parts. Do you watch mainstream media? No, we don't have a TV. Are any of your kids showing any spark of woodworking? Yeah. Not so much the youngest because he's only 5, but the other 2 definitely love doing stuff. And our middle kid, he is 8, loves doing stuff. Rather crude, but comparable to what I was doing at that age. So, hello from Philippines. It's 1 a.m. here and about to sleep. Well, get to sleep then. Squeezing in implications of creation. It is more intelligent design. Oh, that's about. Yeah, Smarter every day. Yeah, I just ignore that sort of aspect. Did you offer you to test the Fluke acoustic imager? No, they didn't. I'd love to play with that, but I'm not about to ask. Hey, can you send me one? It would be kind of an interesting thing to play with. I'm not sure if the video would do all that well. I don't really need one. And in terms of the examples I've shown, like the leak on the tires, like, if you just hold up your ear to the tire, you can feel it. And quite often, if you've got a leak coming out of the tire, if I search for a leaky tire, like other than dipping it, I just run my hand along it because if there's enough of a stream coming out that you could hear with a camera like that, you can feel it. In fact, it even sounds different if you get your finger in front of it. Depends on how loud the stream is. But there's probably cases where that thing can be a lifesaver, and especially if you just already got it. So I would certainly use it, but it's probably not as useful as they make it out to be. But very, very, very cool. I would love to have one. Did you ever consider storing older commercial industrial tools or equipment? No, because that stuff is heavy and cast iron, and I can't get that into the basement. So, and plus the availability here in New Brunswick is very low, and they're usually asking a lot of money for it. Do you ever consider I miss TV. You know what? I used to think if only YouTube was as good as TV, but now when I see TV, I'm like, if only TV was as good as YouTube, because YouTube has gotten really good, and part of that is YouTube analytics, where they show you where the audience tunes out. that really made a huge difference. So now you can watch it like, oh, this part of the video is kind of boring to most people, so I should do less of that and more of that they do watch. See how well your mouse videos have done. Could you create an obstacle course for a mouse? I did the jumping mouse thing, and that one I felt technically was my best mouse video ever, but it didn't get the views. What do you watch on YouTube? I was just talking about that earlier. Not gonna. Anyways, I think I'm going to spontaneously end the stream because part of my goal of testing how well the camera would stream has been achieved. And again, this is a Sony ZV-1. Highly recommend that camera. I got actually the slightly older version that has a better zoom on it. Of course, that camera I've had for 2 years, so I don't know what the present state is. And those dislike Sony to some extent, but I know they're good for film, so I kind of went with that. And they finally got rid. They stopped trying to promote their stupid memory sticks, so it's okay. Greece here in South Africa. Yeah, the latency you don't really notice. You don't realize that what you're watching me is actually like 10 seconds later than me talking it. If I was more interactively, then you might notice it. Should do another video of the camp. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. There will probably be more content on that. Even if suppose we found a private buyer for it and that was a done deal, I would probably still make a final video about it. Best on camera based on price performance. Well, the best price performance is the one that plugs into a phone. I like the pistol type more. It costs like $50 more, but you don't have to mess with your phone. If I travel, I'll take the little one with me because it's less stuff to take with me. Use much better than TV, but only with using lots of plugins to make it usable. Well, I just pay for YouTube Premium. Steve Ramsey mentioned that he paid for that, and it's like, maybe we should try that, and it saves so much time, and I don't have to futz against YouTube with ads and stuff like that. But it does cost me like $12 a month, which is worth it in terms of time saved. Oh yeah, Farmcraft, love that channel. Wooden Gears video recently. Is there a specific no Wooden Gears videos? I just haven't had a need for gears. I did make some gears not that long ago when I built the CNC. The little phone one pad looks handiest. Yeah. Are you planning on going to open source? Nope. No. Like, it's a lot of travel costs and I don't make any money off of it. So it's like huge amount of time gone. You probably end up getting all revved up about meeting other creators, but nothing comes of it. So I can't justify spending thousands of dollars to travel to something like that and the time, and there's no money in it, YouTube Premium is the bomb, but I find it overpriced. Yeah. Well, for somebody who uses YouTube as much as me, it's worth it. I can't really say that you should. Any plans for more metalworking? Not really, because I can do most things with wood. So, if I just for the CNC, I needed a point. I needed a thing 1/4 inch that comes to a point, and I just made that off camera. And I didn't even use my metal lathe for it because I could make that precise to probably about 0.1 millimeters with spinning it with a drill and against the bench grinder. Drill's chuck is not accurate enough for that, but I just ran it against a piece of wood so that the bearing is actually the piece of wood itself as it's the piece of metal as it's spun on the front, right in front of the bench grinder, and then I polished it and it's like, boom, done. And I needed that thing just for aligning so that I can set my origin to the exact edge of the workpiece. That's how much wood you need to replace metal. About 10 times as much. The stiffness of metal is about 10 times compared to wood, so you need about 10 times as much, but it's a lot lighter. Of course, the wear is, if you need a hard surface, the wood cannot compete with metal. Any new builds planned? I've got a list. Have you ever considered building a bandsaw? Ha ha ha. I think I might build one extra bandsaw at some point. Build a sauna? I don't need a sauna. Yeah, I want to see Matthias metalworking, watch Marius Hornberger. Yeah, that guy is more of a machinist just by attitude. Machinists, there's a certain personality type that gravitates towards machining. You do things very slowly, very methodically, very precisely. That's metalworking. And I find comments from metalworkers, they're a little bit, gotta be just so. They're very particular kind of people. Everyone needs a sauna. No, I don't. What is first language? German. You should build a nice size ESS. I have no idea what an ESS is. I don't have any ads at all. The video just starts playing for free. Well, good. What do you think about repurposing pallets to build furniture? Too much work because you usually have dirt ground into them. So what you save on wood cost, you pay in sharpening or new bits or whatever. Do you watch Ben Krasnov? Oh, love the guy. Actually, I met the guy. He used to work at Valve, and he was trying to recruit me to Valve. And so he paid for me to fly out there, and it was really nice meeting him. I also met Jerry Ellsworth on that same trip because she was working at Valve at that time. And at that time, my YouTube was doing really well. Going back way back. It's way down from that. But I mentioned how much I was earning online with various things, and he's like, "Oh, we can't compete with that." And I sort of, I think he thought he had an ace off his sleeve, but it was great meeting him. It was great. Yeah, I love watching his channel. Stir Pro is quite amusing. Yes, I love him. Machines very priced like this old Tony. Yeah, I like this old Tony. What do I know about the static? I'm looking to. I don't know. Oh, I don't know anything about it. Valve as in Steam Valve? Yes. Yes. Steam out in Seattle. Or Valve Soft in I don't know. They're out in Seattle anyways. But you know, I actually downloaded some of their games and played them just as I kind of get a sense of that stuff. And it's like, you know, I'm just not into that kind of game. Do you miss BlackBerry keyboards on phones? Yeah. Yes. Valve 2026, if very exciting. VR is still in its infant. They were working on VR back then. This is like 2012. Make a Tesla valve out of wood. I hate anything Tesla. Tesla is the idol of quacks. Not to say that he wasn't smart, but he's done so many quacky things that he's just attracts quacks like crazy. You know, it's like if somebody idolizes Tesla, you know they're a quack. I'm talking about Tesla, the inventor, not the car. Anyways, I think I'm going to end this stream now because it's gone on for quite some time. Yeah, I'm over an hour now. Nobody's going to watch a stream that long. So, sorry guys, I just got to cut it off somewhere, and I want to try to get back to doing some stuff that I was doing. So, I will end this here. So, I'm about to hit the end stream button. See, this is what it looks like here. See that end stream button right here? Sorry, it's overexposed. So I am hitting that one now so you can watch. Oh, yeah, screen and screen. So 3, 2, 1, click. Oh, end.